Thank you, Gretchen. Well, one would think there's nothing that could fix a 10-year-old feud between a father and a son, but for one man, it was an 8-hour conversation that changed his entire perspective about his dad and his life.
Here to remind us of the importance of relationships during the holiday season is nationally syndicated radio host and author of the new book, Dear Father, Dear Son, Larry Elder joins us now. Larry,
good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for joining us. Such an interesting book. I think the holidays bring out something in all of us, a desire to be closer to our families, and yet sometimes some apprehension about what that experience is going to be like. But you forced yourself to spend 8 hours with your dad
right.
And to come to terms with stuff, and it changed your life.
My dad and I had a really serious fight when I was 15 years old, and we didn't have a serious conversation for almost 10 years. I'm 25 years old at this point, and I'm beginning to feel bad about not talking to my father. It wasn't that I thought we could resolve the relationship, because I couldn't stand the SOB growing up, nor could my two brothers. My dad is a former Marine, tough guy, didn't carry his emotions on his sleeve, and we all mistook that for lack of love. So he didn't like my father growing up. I have this fight. We don't talk to each other for 10 years, and I began to think that maybe I should at least sit down and tell him what I think about him. I can't say that I thought I was going to resolve the relationship. So I sat down with him. I thought the conversation was going to last maybe 10 minutes. We ended up talking 8 hours. And during that period of time, he went from being this rotten, cold SOB to this kind, caring, sensitive guy that I completely misunderstood.
Do you find that, and it's so often because we tend to emulate our parents, right? We are our father's sons. Did you find yourself starting to do that in your own life, starting to act like your dad and maybe having to kick yourself, saying, this is exactly what I didn't like about him?
Well, that's exactly right. I turned 25. I started having responsibilities. You start paying bills, and you realize the kind of pressure that parents are under. And when I sat down with my dad, I found out that my dad did not know who his biological father was. The man named Elder was the man that was in his dad's life the longest, but he was an alcoholic who was physically abusive to his mom and to my dad. My dad came home from school when he was 13 years old, had a fight with his mother's then boyfriend. He gets kicked out of the house at 13 years old, never to return. A black man, Jim Crow South, in the middle of the Great Depression. And if anybody had a reason to be angry, bitter, hateful, it's my dad, but he wasn't. He was a man of grace and a man of dignity. He believed that hard work wins, and no matter how badly you're raised, you should know the difference between good and evil.
And Larry, I've had the opportunity to interview you about this story when the book first came out, so I know that ultimately your dad knew that you were going to put this book together before he passed on, right?
That's right, Gretchen. He died last year, and he always asked me as I was writing the book, when I would read certain things to him, why are you writing about my little life? And I said, Dad, your life can inspire people. 70% of black kids are born outside of wedlock, 50% of Hispanic kids are, 25% of white kids are. If anybody had a reason to be a thug, a criminal, and to be hateful, it was my father. But he wasn't that way. And my father always told me, if you're raised by apes like Tarzan, you ought to know the value of hard work.
Well, pick up this book. A lot of people are going to be talking about family relationships today, tomorrow, and through the new year. Larry Elder, Merry Christmas to you. Thanks for your time today.
Never too late to reconnect.
That's right.
Never too late. Thanks, guys.
Coming up on